You know that feeling when a woman walks into a room, doesn't say a word, doesn't do anything, and every single eye just drifts toward her. The soft click of heels on marble, a trace of jasmine in the air, not heavy, just enough to know she passed through. And the entire room seems to take a breath, and you're standing there, wondering, what does she have that I don't? It's not her looks. It's not her money. It's not some confidence she was born with. It's something she built, day by day, detail by detail. Something women in the 1960s simply called grace. They knew how to sit in a room and make their presence felt without saying a word. They knew when to stay silent, and that silence landed harder than anything they could have said. They knew how to walk into a room full of strangers and within 60 seconds make everyone want to be near them. No school ever taught this. No book ever wrote it down. It was passed from mother to daughter through a glance, a gesture, the way a woman carried herself across a room, and somewhere along the way, that thread was cut. Today, I'm giving it back to you. 15 unspoken rules that women of the 1960s lived by one, specific, and every single one of them learnable, starting today. And when this video is over, you'll never stand in that doorway wondering again. Rule 15. You never left the house unfinished. There was a phrase women used back then that has almost completely disappeared from the language. I need to put my face on. On a morning in 1962, in small kitchens across America, coffee still steaming on the stove, radio murmuring softly from the next room, a woman sat down at her mirror and gave it exactly 10 minutes. Red lipstick, hair brushed smooth, dress pressed neat. It wasn't vanity. It wasn't anxiety about what people thought. It was a quiet act of self-respect, the belief that the world deserved your best, and so did you. In 1962, a woman did not step outside, not to the mailbox, not to the corner store, not even to bring in the milk without being, as they said, presentable, lipstick, hair set, dress neat, 10 minutes, sometimes 5, non-negotiable, and none of it cost a single dollar beyond time. No 12-step skincare routine, no imported serums, no spa appointments, just a mirror and the will to show up. The beauty industry has made billions convincing you that 10 minutes in front of a mirror isn't enough, that you need more, better, pricier. Women of the 1960s would have disagreed. Today we call it not caring what people think. They called it something else entirely. They called it dignity. Rule 14. A lady never raised her voice picture. A dinner party. 1965. The gentle clink of silverware against china. The smell of candle wax and warm food. Someone has just said something deeply wrong politically, socially, personally wrong. The woman across the table disagrees, completely, but she does not raise her voice. She does not interrupt. She waits. She folds her napkin once, and then she says quietly, clearly, without a tremor, I'm not sure I agree with that. And somehow, that soft sentence lands harder than any shout ever could. This was the rule. Volume was weakness. Precision was power. Women of the 1960s understood that a controlled voice carried more authority than a loud one. They spoke slowly. They chose their words like they chose their jewelry carefully, and never too many at once. It cost nothing. No expensive public speaking course required. Just one breath and the patience to use it. We've replaced that restraint with angry comments typed out at 2 a.m., and we wonder why nobody listens anymore. Rule 13. Crossed ankles, not crossed knees. This one sounds small. It isn't. In the early 1960s, the way a woman sat was considered a direct reflection of her upbringing. Knees crossed acceptable, but only for the young and informal. The preferred form, both feet on the floor, ankles crossed gently to one side, back away from the chair, hands folded softly in the lap. It looked effortless. It was not effortless. Young girls practiced it at home, sitting in front of mirrors, adjusting until it became natural. until it became them, completely free. Nothing to buy. No posture tracking app required, just a mirror and 15 minutes a day. This wasn't about restriction, it was about intention. About occupying space with grace, not just filling it. Rule 12. You acknowledged everyone in the room. When a woman of the 1960s entered a space, a parlor, an office lobby, a church hall, she did not walk to her destination with her eyes forward. She acknowledged. A nod to the woman by the window. A small smile to the man holding the door. A quiet word to the hostess before finding her seat. This was not small talk. This was social currency. The ability to make every person in a room feel seen without making a scene yourself was considered one of the highest social skills a woman could possess. Today we call that emotional intelligence. They called it good manners, and they practiced it like an art form, and it cost absolutely nothing. No course teaches this better than simply choosing to notice the people around you. We forgot that, and now we pay thousands for soft skills workshops to learn it back. Rule 11. Perfume was a private thing. In 1963, in a warm room in Chicago, if you could smell someone's perfume from across the room, she had worn too much. The rule was simple and absolute. If someone across the room can smell you, you've worn too much. Perfume was applied to the wrists, behind the ears, perhaps for the more daring the inside of the elbow. Warm against the skin, rising softly, meant only for those who came close enough to deserve it. This wasn't modesty for the sake of modesty. It was the understanding that mystery was more powerful than announcement. A small bottle, used correctly, lasts an entire year. No need to spray yourself down before walking out the door. The fragrance industry doesn't want you to know that. A woman who left a faint trail as she passed through a room was remembered far longer than one who overwhelmed every sense in it. Rule 10. Thank you notes were not optional. The morning after a dinner party, a social gathering, or any act of generosity, a woman sat down and wrote. The scratch of a pen across paper, the faint smell of stationery, careful, slanted handwriting on a clean white page, by hand, on proper stationery, with a fountain pen if she had one, not a phone call, not a verbal thank you at the door, a letter. It didn't need to be long. 3 sentences were enough, but it needed to exist, and it needed to arrive within 24 hours. This was considered such a basic requirement of social life in the 1960s that failing to send one could quietly, permanently close a door. 1 sheet of paper, 1 envelope, 1 stamp, less than $1. By today's prices, we've replaced all of this with a text message, sometimes with nothing at all. And we wonder why something feels missing. Rule 9. Disagreements were never public. A couple arguing in public in the 1960s was not just uncomfortable to witness. It was considered a serious breach, a private failure made embarrassingly visible. Whatever happened between a husband and wife, or between friends, or family members, was handled behind closed doors, quietly, completely. In public, you presented unity, not because the conflict wasn't real, but because there was a shared understanding that some things belong only to the people involved. It cost nothing. No therapy app, no conflict resolution workshop, just the mutual agreement that not every emotion needs an audience. Today, we broadcast our arguments to hundreds of strangers in real time, and we call it authenticity. They might have called it something else. Rule 8. You dressed for the occasion, every occasion. There was no such thing as overdressed in the 1960s vocabulary. There was only appropriate and not appropriate. Church required one outfit, the grocery store required another. A dinner out, even a modest one, required something different still. Women kept these lines clear. A house dress for home, a day dress for errands, a cocktail dress for evenings. This wasn't about wealth. Many of these women had very little. A small wardrobe, well cared for, worn to the right occasion that was enough for a year. No weekly shopping hauls, no chasing the latest trend. It was about marking time, signaling to yourself and others that this moment, This occasion, this person, deserved your attention and your effort. Sweatpants to the airport would have been unimaginable, not because of judgment, because of respect. Rule 7. You never discussed money, salary, debt, cost of groceries, price of a dress. None of it was ever spoken aloud in social settings. Asking someone what they paid for something, their home, their car, their coat, was considered deeply intrusive, almost aggressive. And offering the information unasked was seen as equally poor, form a kind of low-level boasting dressed up as conversation. The rule was quiet and firm. Money matters were private matters. Whether you had a great deal of it or very little, you carried it with the same composed silence. That sounds almost revolutionary now, in a world where we post restaurant receipts, debate salaries openly, and flex wealth like it's a personality trait. They understood that what you choose not to say defines you just as much as what you do say. Rule 6. Eye contact was sacred. When someone spoke to you in the 1960s, you looked at them. Not at the window, not at the door, not at your hands, at them. Eye contact was not aggressive. It was not uncomfortable. It was simply required. It said, "I see you. You have my full attention. You matter right now." Women were especially trained in this, to look directly, warmly, steadily at the person speaking, and to hold it without fidgeting, completely free. No meditation app required, no active listening course. Just put down what you're holding and look at the person in front of you. We have forgotten how to do this. We sit across from people we love and look at glowing rectangles in our hands, and we are lonelier than any generation that came before us. Rule 5. You arrived on time. Always. Lateness in the 1960s was not a personality trait. It was not charming. It was not just how I am. It was a statement, and the statement was, "My time is worth more than yours." Women organized their mornings and their evenings around being precisely on time. Not 5 minutes early, not 5 minutes late, on time. It required planning, preparation, and it cost nothing, only the quiet discipline that has quietly disappeared from everyday life. Being late today is something we apologize for and then repeat. In the 1960s, it was something you simply did not allow yourself to become. Rule 4. The hostess never sat down. When a woman hosted, whether it was a formal dinner or a simple afternoon visit, she did not sit until every guest was comfortable. The smell of fresh coffee, the careful placement of a china cup, the warmth from the oven spreading through the room, every cup filled, every plate passed, every need anticipated before it was spoken. This was not servitude. It was a form of mastery, the quiet, total command of a space and everyone in it. The great hostesses of the 1960s were studied and admired the way we admire great executives today, because what they did required the same skills: reading people, managing logistics, making complexity look effortless. They just did it in heels, in their own home, without asking for credit. Rule 3. Compliments were given and received properly. If someone in the 1960s said, "What a beautiful dress," the correct response was not, "Oh, this old thing? I got it for nothing." That was considered quietly, firmly, a rejection, a dismissal of the other person's sincerity. The correct response was simply, "Thank you. How kind of you to say." Full stop. Women were taught to receive a compliment the same way they gave one, with grace, warmth, and no deflection. We have turned self-deprecation into a social reflex, a performance of humility that is, ironically, just as self-focused as vanity. They understood something we've lost. Accepting kindness gracefully is itself a kindness. Rule 2. You spoke well of others, or you said nothing. If you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. Everyone has heard this phrase. Almost no one lives by it anymore. In the 1960s, speaking poorly of someone who was not present, gossiping, criticizing, speculating reflected not on the absent person, but on you. It marked you. Women who understood the social code knew that restraint in speech was one of the most visible signs of character, not because they had no opinions, they had strong ones, but because they understood the difference between a thought and a statement, and that not every thought deserved to become one. It cost nothing. No meditation retreat, no executive coach, just one moment of pause before opening your mouth. Rule 1: grace was not an accident. Everything we've talked about, the posture, the voice, the timing, the silence, none of it was natural. It was practiced, every day, in small ways, without applause. The women of the 1960s understood something that the modern world has almost entirely rejected: that who you are in public is a choice, and that choice is worth making carefully. They didn't call it a personal brand. They didn't call it self-optimization. They called it being a lady. And whether or not we agree with every rule they followed, whether some of those rules were fair, or limiting, or bound to a world that needed to change, there is something worth pausing on. They tried. Every single day, they tried to show up with intention, with care, with the quiet belief that how you move through the world matters.